going to talk about using your torch, because really your torch is the most important thing, and flame control is very, very important. How you use your flame determines whether your solder joint is going to work or if it's not going to work. It also determines if you're going to melt your piece. We've all done it, and actually it's a really good learning experience, because if you melt something, hopefully not something you've spent 2 hours preparing, you then learn what metal looks like when it melts. You get an idea of metal colours, and we'll go through that. Let's just talk about the sort of things that we can solder. We can solder wire, sheet, and these are the common materials that we usually use within jewellery making anyway. Now these can be brass, this can be gold, it can be copper, silver. I would say the main things that you use when you're starting out are copper if you're practicing, and then often you'll remake something in silver just so that it's not so expensive. But I'm just going to show you. So we often have lots of different metal sheet in lots of different thicknesses. So this really depends on what you're making, and you don't want your sheet to be too thin, but equally you don't want it to be too thick. So this is a unfinished sheet, and we can tell that because it's not shiny, it's just the silver as it comes, and you can see the thickness there. Now this doesn't only just come in unfinished, it comes in high shine. It also comes, you can get sort of different textures in your metal sheets as well. And you can get any sheet, you can get brass sheet, you can get copper sheet. Copper's a really good way to practice. It does behave in a slightly different way to sterling silver. So if you have never soldered before, it's quite nice to use copper, but also you can go straight in with your sterling. That's absolutely fine. And just start as you mean to go on. It's completely up to you. You can also mix metals. You can mix your copper in with your silver as well. That's absolutely fine. And then if you think about things like rings or bangles, we usually use different shaped wires. So your basic band ring, so like my finger ring there that you're seeing, that's just a beaded wire. It's just a length of wire. And so if you think a wedding ring, that's a D-shaped wire. A bangle, this is all wire. Even these chain links have been made using wire and soldered together. So most things can be made with either jewellery wire or jewellery sheet. And what soldering does, it will take 2 parts of jewellery, or more if you're making a multiple soldered piece, and it will permanently fuse the metal together. And you need your solder to do that. So in order to solder, we need to use our torch. We need to know how to use it, we need to know our way around it, and we need to know flame control. You're not going to learn everything today by watching this, but hopefully you will have enough confidence to go away, try for yourself, and with trial and error and practice, you'll get used to it. So let's have a look round our torch. I'll just move the metal out of the way. So torches can be slightly different, but they're generally the same. You fill them up with lighter fluid, so your torch will come empty. And if you look on the bottom, you have, very similar to when you fill up a lighter, you have this little point here. When you're filling up your torch, you would hold your torch upside down. So I don't think this one's completely full. Take your fluid, just as you would with a lighter, and press down. And you will know when it's finished because it will start, sort of a little bit of smoke will start coming out of the top there. Right, so mine was almost full. And then often you will just pop that down on the surface and just leave that to settle. And that actually, a full torch will last you quite a while before you have to fill it up again. So it's as easy as that to fill up your torch. Now at the back here, we've got this dial, and this is a flame control. So it will make my flame either go larger or smaller at the front, and I'll show you that when I light it. This is a trigger which actually lights my torch. Some of the inexpensive torches you have to light yourself with a lighter, so you would turn the gas on and then light it with a torch, but this one has a trigger, and I would recommend that actually, especially if you're starting out. It's less things to think about. And then at the side you've got a locking mechanism, so you can actually lock your torch for health and safety reasons. And that's really all you need to know about your torch. The next thing we need to talk about is the flame. So I wouldn't light my torch anywhere near anything that I'm going to aim at that could cause a problem. Thinking about when you're starting, sometimes you'll be aiming your flame at your metal And then while you're concentrating, you take your flame away and you know, you're pointing over here. You need to make sure that you turn your flame off when you're using it. You can always bring it back to your metal. So let's light up our torch. So I'm going to just turn the gas on. I'm just turning it a little bit and you'll hear it go.
My first touch froze my mother to gold. I was born with golden eyes. When she held me for the first time, her...
Hear that? And then trigger. And I've got my flame. Now it's a bit more difficult to see in the studio the flame, and you will be able to see the colours of your flame much better when you're at home in your natural light. We've got very, very powerful studio lights. As I turn my dial at the back here, I can turn my flame up and it will get hotter and a bigger, bushier flame, and I can turn my flame down and it will go slightly cooler and not as bushy. Now, as you can see there, the point of that blue point of the flame is actually the hottest part. And when you start playing at home, you'll see that beyond that blue, under normal light conditions, there is a longer flame, a longer yellow flame that's a little bit washed out in our studio here. Can you see it? Yeah. And then to turn it off, you just turn the dial all the way and that is off. So I think before you do anything, just practicing turning on the flame, turning off the flame, that you comfortably know how to do that. Now, talking about flame control, anytime you think that you've had your flame on there for too long and it's going to melt, you can take it off. You can always put it back on again, but you can take that flame off. And what you'll find is you'll get used to what colour this metal goes when it's about to melt. So usually we would heat it up to an orangey type colour if we were annealing our metal, just to soften it. But to actually solder, we'll usually take it up to a cherry red colour. If your piece is vibrant red, it's about to melt. And the easiest way to see that is to actually watch it in action, okay? So I'm going to take that large piece out of the way. Now also, we all have different definitions of colour, don't we? So what I think is cherry red, you might not think. So you need to just practice. And you can do that with a piece of copper or a piece of scrap silver or upcycled silver. Get used to your metal colours. And when you've been doing it a while, you'll think, oh, it's about to melt. You'll be able to tell. Okay, so I'm going to heat up this piece of metal and I'm going to try and talk you through the colours, and then I'm actually going to melt it so that you can see how long it can take to melt metal. I'm going to turn my torch on and I'm going to have a medium flame, so not right up and not right down. So I'm turning on my gas, lighting my torch, turning it up slightly, and I'm just putting my flame on my metal. So I don't know if we can come in on the metal, so I'm just going to take it off a moment. So my metal now has gone quite orange, and if I was annealing, I'd take my flame off straight away. If I was soldering, I'd probably take it to there, bright red. Now if I leave it on for longer than that, let's see what happens. So there, look, it's melting. That didn't take long at all. If I keep my flame on it, it will melt into a little ball completely. So if you think liquid mercury, liquid terminator, that's what can happen to your metal. Once you have finished heating your metal, don't try and touch it while it's glowing because it's still soft and you need to like it stop being glowing now. So I would just take that off my fire brick and pop it in my water, and you'll hear a very satisfying quenching sound, and that will go into the water. So if you've spent a long time preparing a ring band, I'm really excited, I've made my first stacking ring. When you solder it together, you don't want to melt it. If you do, it's a learning process, it doesn't matter. But you will get used to, as you go along, the colours that your metal goes, and you'll know. Torch control is all about thinking, nope, taking the flame away, taking it back, knowing what temperature that you need. And I'll show you that when we come to our stacking ring. So I'm just going to heat this large piece of metal once more so that we can get some idea of, and see if you can see when you think it's going to melt. So I'm turning this on. Trigger, I've got quite a low flame just so it melts a little bit quicker. So I've got no colour on this so far. Now I know I'm at about annealing temperature now because I've got an orange coming off of my flame. So if I wanted to anneal, make my metal softer so I could work on it, I know that I could take my flame off now. If I wanted to solder,